Secretary Priti Patel. Ms Patel, great to have you on this morning. Do hope you're well. Of course, we cannot begin our discussion on the day that the 46th President of the United States takes office without discussing events on the other side of the Atlantic. As he leaves office, what are your thoughts on the tenure of Donald Trump?
Look, first of all, I think I was on your programme just 2 weeks ago, actually saying that, we have an incredibly strong relationship with the United States of America, and our government will always work with, the president and his incoming team. Now, in terms of the Trump administration, again, we have worked very strongly with the outgoing president's administration on a range of issues, and notwithstanding the fact that a great deal has happened over, his tenure as president, all sorts of international events. He's been very robust in terms of a particular posture when it comes to parts of the world, such as the Middle East. But quite frankly, we move on now. There is a new incoming president. Our prime minister has rightly so been in touch with President-elect Biden. We've got an exciting agenda as two strong democratic countries, coming together that'll be working together on a range of issues. As we go into this year, we're holding the presidency of the G7, we'll be chairing the UN Security Council, we'll be hosting the COP conference, we've got a whole agenda on climate change. So, for us, it's very much business as usual with a new team at this very exciting time with this big handover, this, change in power structures, bases and politics in the United States.
Sure, but at least for the next few hours, Donald Trump does remain President of the United States. And I wonder, is it good that a man who can't be trusted with his social media accounts is trusted with the nuclear codes?
Well, look, I've said this before in terms of what we've seen over recent weeks, and the violence that we saw, in Washington, which thoroughly unacceptable. The fact of the matter is now, today is a historic day. It's inauguration day in the United States. It's a moment of change with a new administration coming in. And as you'd expect, the British government, the government across the United Kingdom looks forward to working with President Joe Biden and his administration on a whole range of issues where we have shared interests, on the security of our collective countries, the safety and security of the world, but a whole range of issues, in terms of internationalism, bilateral relations, multilateralism going forward. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I think we could all agree on that. And it's important that our two nations come together and show the global leadership that, both the US but the United Kingdom will always step up and do.
Is Joe Biden, in your opinion, better for America than Donald Trump?
Well, look, there's a change in presidency, but as ever, and we can say this as well, when administrations change, the world changes, the direction of travel from politicians in particular, from political leaders, will always reflect some of the challenges and changes that we see going on domestically and internationally. A new political era is now starting in America. And as I've said, there's a lot to do globally. There really is, as well as in the US, certainly uniting the United States, at the end of the Trump administration and as Joe Biden takes over, but also, as I've said, stepping up to really confront and address many of the global challenges that we face collectively. And America has an enormous role to play in terms of global leadership. And we look forward to supporting America, on many of those challenges.
A global challenge as much as a domestic challenge is, of course, the problem that every country has with drugs. Here in the UK, we're going to be getting a little bit tougher with some, I have to say, significant investment. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, that's right. I've made it the mission of this government over the last 12 months to focus on rolling up county line drug gangs. We've seen for far too long drug use across the country, but actually kids in particular being used by these awful gangs to peddle drugs around the country. Now, we've had amazing law enforcement successes over the last 12 months, with thousands of lines being shut down, criminal actions being taken, but also protecting vulnerable kids that have been very much preyed upon and used as part of this criminal activity. But alongside this work, we're now putting in, this Health Secretary and myself, Matt Hancock, working to put in £148 million to really look at this whole issue from an end-to-end perspective. So while I deal with the law enforcement side, we are now looking at the drug treatment and the rehabilitation side, because too many individuals individuals and communities have been blighted by drug misuse across the country. So we're now putting in £80 million of investment into drug use or drug misuse centres, how we can get treatment into people that need that help and support. We've got some pilot projects, 5 pilots across the country, and we're putting in the largest increase for drug treatment in particular for the first time in 15 years. So this is very, very significant. And as I've said, communities have been blighted for far too long. And this is important and essential work that we need to do to turn people's lives around. And it's all part of our up agenda.
Can we please talk about the problems that there have been with the Police National Computer? 400,000 records, including fingerprint, DNA, arrest records, were apparently wiped. At the weekend, you said you had technical staff working on the issue. How much have we been able to recover?
So first of all, let me just clarify this. This is a coding issue. So in terms of records and retrieving records, much of this data exists in other systems as well. So, there is a lot of technical work underway right now to retrieve.
How much of that data?
I can't tell you how much has been retrieved right now because it's taking time, because our officials and technicians here, engineers, have had to apply new code to the actual Police National Computer System. And
could you then tell us how much is on other databases then? How much of the information we can recoup?
No, we can't, because there are a range of other connected databases. So these records, this is complicated because the code that was applied to wipe and delete records is a new code, but we have to do this on a weekly basis. So there is a multi-system recovery process taking place right now, and that is taking time. So we will update Parliament and colleagues in Parliament as well, and the public, once we know exactly the type of records that we have that have been retrieved. But I'll be very clear as well, if we have to go back to files, working with our policing and operational partners to put in manual uploads, that's exactly what we will absolutely do. But it's important to say the computer itself is working, and law enforcement agencies and partners are still able to access the data, upload files.
Sure.
How we retrieve some of these files that were deleted. But as I've said, there are multiple records that are held in different sources. So, we talk about a figure of 400,000. The actual figure could actually be a lot less.
Well, when you know, please do come on and let us know.
Absolutely, we will do that. But as I said, it will take time because this is a coding issue. It takes time.
We do need to talk COVID-19 just for a second. Last week, I had the Health Secretary on the programme making it crystal clear that there was absolutely no time frame in place for the relaxation of lockdowns. Brandon Lewis, yesterday on the programme, made similar comments. But once again this morning, I go to open the papers, both The Sun and The Telegraph, and indeed I think the Mail as well, all reporting that there is now a framework in place within government for the easing of restrictions starting around about the beginning of April. First, is that true? Second, if you can't answer that question, why am I reading about it in the papers again?
Well, look, first of all, I can't be responsible for what appears in national newspapers and speculation.
You're the government representative on the programme this morning, Home Secretary.
Well, let me just put some context around this. I mean, we are at a pivotal stage. I think I've always said this about coronavirus. Our vaccine rollout is underway, but we have a long way to go with vaccination. We cannot talk about easing restrictions and measures until we are absolutely clear that we have vaccinated prior groups, and obviously we go much further.
You can't talk about them publicly, but clearly, once again, several papers have been briefed. This briefing hasn't been plucked from thin air. Someone in government has done this, whether it's a civil servant, a special advisor, or a minister, we don't know. But the discussion is clearly taking place in Whitehall. Yes or no? Well,
it's right that work always takes place in terms of the future recovery post-coronavirus. And that work, is multifaceted. It's not just about lifting restrictions. It's also about how we can focus on a range of challenges and priorities post-coronavirus. That work will always take place. But I should emphasise to your viewers this morning, it is far too early to even speculate as to when lockdown measures will be eased and the restrictions will go. We are still in a perilous situation. I cannot emphasise that enough. We see that...
Dominic Raab on the Sophie Ridge programme on Sunday mentioned, the middle of February, literally mentioned the middle of February. That is the point at which we can start looking at the case numbers and considering relaxing. And that's the Foreign Secretary.
Well, the middle of February is the date for when we aim to vaccinate those people in the top 4 priority cohort areas. So that is the over 80s, and huge work is taking place on that. But in particular, those who are susceptible to coronavirus and actually becoming hospitalized and dying from coronavirus. That has always been our mid-February target with the vaccine rollout and that program. But quite frankly, I mean, I will say this again, when I look at, the incredible work that's taking place in the NHS right now, when we still see hospitalization figures, now standing at over 38,000 people, with the number of people still dying with coronavirus, with the number of hospital admissions still increasing. This is no time to speak about the relaxation of measures, and we're not going to do that publicly yet. We have a long way to go, which is why, you see me out with the police frequently, speaking to the police, talking about the work that we constantly do around compliance and enforcement. That work is going to continue, because by doing that, we will continue to save lives and protect the NHS, which is absolutely imperative right now.